All right, good afternoon, everyone. Time to call the meeting to order for the Technical Advisory Committee of the Waco Metropolitan Organization. We need to do introductions of here. All right, we'll start with Arthur and work our way around.
Arthur Chambers, Waco MPO Max.
Greg Rice, City of Alameda Public Works Director.
Brent Lane, Tech Stop Planning and Programs.
Clayton Zacca, Tech Stop Recruiter.
Victor Gables, Director of TPD for Waco Street.
Andy Moore, Public Works Director, Lacey Lakeview.
Amy from Marlin Highland Public Works Director, Steve Waco.
Kes Kumar, Waco MPO.
Zane Dunham, County Engineer. Enrique Perez, Finance.
Teresa Stevenson, Michael Jackson.
Chris Norris, City West. I'm also in study.
Mark Healy, City of Waco, Public Works Watershed.
Yeah, okay, that's
Or right, Waco, yeah.
And then Waco, yeah.
Welcome, Craig. Nice to have another Public Works Director here with us. Stick with us a long time. So the first item on our agenda is consideration and action regarding a recommendation to the policy board regarding the fiscal year 2025 through 2028 transportation improvement program for deputy.
So at the last meeting, we had a brief discussion on all the projects that are going in the 2025-2028 TIP. So as you know, that transportation improvement program is a phased implementation of all the projects that have already completed. These are projects that are ready to go, and projects for which we have identified funding and the right of way acquisition already been completed, or in progress also in some cases. But most important part is that these are all fiscally constrained projects for which we have clearly identified funding within the time frame of the TIP, which is a 4-year time frame, 25 to 2028. But we do develop TIP every 2 years to make sure that whatever changes may have happened with the projects, they can be accounted for and adjusted accordingly. We do amend our TIP. Typically, we like to amend it once a year if possible. Let's go to the next one. And so, even though it's a 4-year program, we do TechStop requires that they overlap, meaning that we have years to make adjustment to any construction or implementation scope of work or the project limit, or if there have been any change in the cost of the project, we can accommodate for that as well. So in the current TIP, this is the 2025 to 2028 TIP, in which most of these projects that were already identified in the long-range transportation plan that have been done engineering have been completed. And in fact, most of the projects in a moment will bring them up. You will notice that there is no outstanding component to that. So let's go to the next one. So for the construction phase for highways, which totals $371.4 million, I-35-4C, we are expecting it to be let in FY25. Twin Bridges FY25, and well, in FY25, but Twin Bridges actually might be January this year, next year, 2025. And Spur 298 Franklin at New Road, that's fiscal year 2026. And the widening at Highway 6 at McLaughlin is scheduled for FY 2027. Combined, all of these, the category 2 urban mobility funds add up to $121 million, about 50%. We are removing the State Highway 31 at 2311 from the TIP because it is, has it been let? Isn't it today? It's today. Okay, it just got let today. Okay. so it has been let today, and so it does not need to be in the 2025-2028. These are the projects that are where the construction is planned for 2029 or beyond, and in being about preliminary engineering and right of way acquisition, projects they total about $8.4 million at the moment, and we are the PP and ROW costs. So this is East State Loop 340, US 84 to 484, or 6, US 84, Drive to Lake Air, Fox Interchange, McGregor Bypass, and US 17, we got it Parkway to Mother Neff, and FM 434 was all to Garden. That's the University Parks Drive. And so these are the ones for which the PEN right of way has been allocated. And one of the reminders I want to make is that these are the projects we are not reconsidering for our MTP. These are the projects that go into the MTP as is, since these are the projects on which already significant amount of monies have been allocated. But since we are introducing a new evaluation system for MTP, we still evaluate these projects just to make sure that the evaluation team and everyone understands how these projects actually. In the TIP, we also include the grouped highway projects, and typically we group them because they are preventive maintenance related projects, safety, bridge replacement, and landscape development. And what they essentially do is that it allows the letting schedule to be adjusted according to what the exact needs are, depending on what is available at any given point in time. We, even though we are not required to give the entire list, we provide an illustrative list of group project in Appendix F. For public transportation, there's $35.8 million, and of course the projects listed in 25, 28 MTP, and all of them relate to preventive maintenance, ADA expenses, operating expenses, short-range planning, passenger amenities, and bus purchases. Waco Transit is the urban transit provider for Richmond County. And so all the projects here listed directly linked with Waco Transit and Waco Transit. Next slide. So in terms of what the breakdowns are for preventive maintenance, 80% of it is the federal share, ADA expenses only 40%, operating expenses 50%, short-range planning 80%. Passenger amenities 80%, bus purchases 100%, and for a total of about 60% of it is funded of the total funds of 21.1 million. That is 25 million actually. That is being programmed in this 2025-2028. So these are the projects in Appendix D that we typically have improvement projects which are under development, but we don't have any identified funding sources for them. What it does is that by putting projects in Appendix D, it allows environmental clearance on part of the Waco district. But these projects, in order to get to implementation phase, they still require a further amendment into the TIP or being brought into the TIP, either in the new TIP or through amendment before they can be led to construction. Next. So in the Appendix D, these are the projects that what we're including is Loop 340, is that correct?
All the rest of them. Remember, Appendix D is, you don't have funding for construction.
Yes.
So some of them are still listed in Appendix D and in engineering. The only one that is that bottom one.
New one at the bottom, the Loop 340 I-35 to the Union Pacific Railroad. So these are all the ones in the Appendix D. Next slide. And so we conducted from March 31st to April 29th, public engagement schedule. All the new TIP required a 30-day public comment period. We had public information meetings on April 9th, April 9th at 12 noon and as well as 5:30. We had two meetings, and you had reviewed the draft at the last meeting. And today, what we are requesting you to do is consider your recommendation to adoption by the policy board. And policy board will tackle this on May 16th. So after your discussion and such, we are requesting you to recommend the policy board to approve. That's the resolution that policy board will be considering to adopt this TIP for 2025-2028.
Any questions or discussions? Okay, we're considering a motion. Someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as stated.
Second,
I'll second.
questions, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is discussion and updates on 2015 Metropolitan Transportation Plan.
So, as you're aware, we're in the process of developing the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And we started the process in 2023, and the process will be completed, be concluded in January 2025 with adoption by the Policy Board of the 2050 MTP. There are a few things that we are doing a bit differently. Since a lot of you here are probably new to the process, and the ones who have been with the process, you'll notice that there are a few things that are different. One is that the process began in January of 2023, when for roughly about 5 months, there was a group that went and thought through what the approach and the scope of the new MTP needs to be. We organized a public listening session of the public agencies on October 6th. We had a regional visioning work session on October 19th that resulted in a regional vision adopted by the MPO Policy Board. And based on that regional vision and federal requirements, we developed the call for proposal and project evaluation framework that we have been discussing thoroughly. And so based on that, we opened the project solicitation in March, and it will continue until June 21st. And after that, we will have a month of evaluation of the projects. And as part of the preparation for these, we have been organizing several meetings with various cities, and both Brenton and Victor have been in that meeting for the meeting to start with not only the projects that have been discussed in the past, but what are some of the best ways to move forward, come up with new projects, consider old projects, if we need to identify, remove scope, or basically come up with in the spirit of coming up with the best project possible, discuss exact nature of project that we need to consider. One of the important things that I would like to remind all of us that most of us sitting here in this room are really going to be primarily responsible for pushing forward with the projects, entering it into the decision lens format so that the evaluation team can consider. And so based on that, we have had several meetings. There were 7 really wonderful meetings, actually, and we have discussed several projects. And what we're expecting is that a much larger field of project, which we evaluate. The goal is to produce a prioritized list of projects so that the tech staff can start considering them for application, design, implementation, funding. But one of the important items that has come up as course of this meeting, that there were several projects, several questions asked, rather, in which the problems were quite clearly laid out, but the solutions weren't. And so what it meant was that instead of thinking of these problems as I know the project I want, now give me the problem I can fit it to, what we decided that what we need to do is really think of this as one large regional activity problem, and because the problems identified are clearly very well justified. And some of the ideas have been around in some form or the other for almost 15, 20 years. And it's important that instead of thinking about them in a very project-specific manner, we simply understand the problem to be what they are and try to solve them through a regional connectivity thing. And so, so that's one of the items that this morning we had some discussion in which we were trying to figure out what might be the best approach to it, because such a feasibility study of trying to solve a problem, looking at many different projects, it will try to address projects across the county so that it will not be in one particular jurisdiction. It might make sense for such a proposal to come from the county, jointly co-sponsored by all the cities. And that way we can move forward with a single project which looks at the regional connectivity and it's jointly sponsored. And that will also allow us to make this proposal then go through our MTP process, even though it won't necessarily identify a particular project. And so that's one of the important things we want to mention. We will be conducting public meetings across Metropolitan County from August till October, and we will need your help at that point in time, also identifying the locations where we need to do them, and some of you will invite you to come and join those meetings as well. And the final MTP, so in terms of timeline in between the August-October, what we're expecting to do is that we'll have a preliminary listing of projects presented just prior to August meeting of the policy board, and we'll ask them for the permission to move forward with the public meetings. And we'll, based on the public meeting, then we'll present the projects to the policy board along with the draft of the MTP at their November meeting. And then they will consider that, and January meeting is when we're expecting them to approve the plan. Excellent. One of the important points actually, why don't I hand it over to you, Arthur, and just explain it to you.
Yeah, 'cause there's actually two ways that we can get access to submitting the call for proposal. So I'm pull up the website really quick. So the first way is on the homepage of the MPO website. There's a 2050 MTP tab, and then there's information about where to go essentially. So this has the framework criteria, and then here click on propose your project, and it'll bring you to the Decision Lens website whenever it loads. So if you don't have a login, you can register here, or you can just log in using the one that you already have from the weighting criteria exercise that we did. So, yep. And then the other way is going off the fire, moving too fast. So going to the menu and then going to planning and programs. And then here you just scroll down on this MTP page. And then pretty much the same link and the same information. So this is the second way to arrive to the Decision Lens to submit the call for proposal. And I'll get back to the presentation.
Related to that, one of the questions that and we have had this discussion in our staff meeting, but it would be great to have some input. We have been calling our long range plan connection 2045, and we previously called it connections 2040. If you have any thought on what might we want to call it, that would be fabulous. We have come up with the term convey. And again, we know it does not roll off the tongue very easily because convey is sort of sounds vague. But more time we spent considering it, I think more convinced we got that it really captures everything we're trying to do in this MTP. And so in our staff meeting, we sort of, even though we know it does not roll off the tongue very easily, convey 2050 what. But more time we spend thinking through what it is that, after all, our MTP is really a way to convey people and goods from location X to location Y. But that is the fundamental reason why we do this. And then we try to not only that, but convey also in terms of time. That one of the important points that we're trying to make is that we're trying to respond to the current problems, but also trying to convey how the current solution will convey itself to the future. And so in that sense, more time we spend thinking about it, more convinced we don't like this actually makes sense, even though it doesn't sound that nice. So we have plenty of time to think through exactly what we want to call it, but any input on, if you have anything nicer, we are of course totally open to this.
Convey connections, 2050.
We still want to
Just spitballing.
That's what we have. This is really important, and you all really are, whether we succeed in producing a really good 2050 MTP or not is really going to depend on how you see it. And so it's entirely dependent on your ability and effort. So we had this thing.
Any questions or discussion about the proposals for the hearing? What that means? Sort of flesh out things and figure out what we really. All right, the next item is discussion and updates on the current grants. That would be Safe Streets for All and the RAISE grant.
probably bring it up in the MPO update at the end. One of the, or can I state it like this?
You may digress.
Thank you. At the last TAC meeting, we had workshops on both air quality and water quality from Roger and Mark led the discussion on water quality, and Ryan McManamy had led the discussion on air quality. But we did not get any further requests to bring them back for this meeting. But Mark asked if we were expecting him to be at this meeting, and I told him that we might have more questions. And so please come. So Mark is here, and Mark has been leading the effort along with Roger for doing the watershed management practices, not only best practices, but it's wonderful to have a resident expert on these matters, so that we don't have to constantly keep digging stuff up. We can simply ask Mark a lot of questions. And Mark also has been very generous with his time, not only in the development of the air water quality stuff in the MTP process, but also educating me. Actually, early on when we were talking about it, I remember we had a meeting in which Mark and Roger sort of gave me a 2-hour lecture on exactly what all the challenges and problems are there. So, which was wonderful to wrap our mind around. So Mark had generously, he made himself available today also. So even before the end of the meeting, if anybody has any question related to water quality and how to address them, and this morning for most of you, you probably experienced firsthand quite a bit of flash flooding, which is in the very short run, we know that that's a major risk, that factor that we deal with on a regular basis. But in the longer term, what is also crucially important is that we have been fortunate to have well-endowed water resource in Central Texas, in McLennan County, but that's not necessarily mean that it's unlimited. There is only a finite amount, and the more we degrade the system, less of it becomes available to us in the meantime. So Mark is doing a fantastic job, in fact, it's one of the jobs where we don't see, people don't get excited that, yeah, we can do watershed management, but it's such a crucially important thing that what we like to say is that in city planning is that cities typically do very well because they often have a bunch of other things happening for them. But most cities that die, they typically die because of natural disasters of one sort. And the water often can explain almost 50% of this half of the cities that have gone out of existence had something or the other to do with water in some form or the other. And so in that sense, water may not appear to be the most important motivating force behind the city, but it often is the most important basis for whether a city lives or survives or dies. And so it's really important. And so if you have any questions, please mark this here. We wanted to give you an update that our comprehensive safety action plan, policy board adopted the plan on April 29th. If there are additional projects that we have not discussed so far and we need to amend it, we will do another round of discussion and we can amend it at the June meeting. The demonstration project grant is with Federal Highway Administration at this point in time to execute the grant. The moment it is, we convene through the Safety Action Task Force. All the projects within that that we need to get started on. There will be 2 separate section parts of it. The first phase is going to be a design of the project itself, and we would like to bring a consultant to simply think through the design of what needs to be proposed. Then the second part will be implementing the demonstration projects. We have for FY 2024, we are drafting a proposal for this sign inventory across McLennan County. And what you will see an email from us within probably early next week to whether you want to be part of that or not, so that we can finalize the budget piece of it. And based on some preliminary discussion that Zaid and I had, what we're considering is that for most of the county outside of the urban area, we're looking at about $500,000 total cost. As we add cities, we know city of Waco. So city of Waco will not be part of it, but all the other cities that if they are part of it, we're considering adding another $50,000 per city based on that. So we will need to figure out what the budget needs to look like. So you'll see an email from us, early next week. Please let us know if you want to be asked into that. We do have, some implementation grant proposals that different cities are preparing, and we do not have complete information to give you at this point in time. And so as we get more information, we'll share. The FY 2023 raise grant, we have some portion of it has started, but a few other portions are still waiting for the grant execution before we move forward. And lastly, the FY 2024 Active Transportation Infrastructure Investment Grant Program. This is the one which we would like to use. Our alternative transportation plan was done, remind me the date again, 2017 or 2015? Early 2018. So 2017 is when we developed the APP, 2018 we adopted it. And looking at that and all the different work that has been done since then, it seems like that's something which we need to revisit. And so we would like to go ahead and use the Active Transportation Infrastructure Investment Grant Program. It's a federal grant, fairly competitive, to go ahead and apply for it so that we can not only update it, but there are some portions we think that we need to redefine our approach to it. At the same time, this is also important that if your city has a particular implementation project in which there is a park or a trail or any such thing that you think that will fit with this program, it would be great for you to look into it and apply for it. Especially if you have Parks and Rec department that works independently of any of you, please make sure that they are aware of this opportunity. So one of the things that we want to make sure that we understand that if the projects are listed in any of our planning documents, they typically have higher probability of getting funded. And that's one reason why we like to bring them into whether it be an active transportation plan or long range plan or corridor or any of such plans. And also with the CSAP, what came out was that we talked a lot about the safety grants, and we were mostly thinking about the SS4A grant program, but all of these proposals can be proposed for ETSIP or IIP or transportation alternative set aside programs. So these projects basically become available or open for other funding consideration. So, what we want to be able to be to help you as much as we can, and we have spent so much time doing this. So all this SF424 family of forms, we have become quite an expert on this because we have spent so much time trying to prepare them. And so we are happy to help you with any of these programs whenever we can. We cannot get
Right, but we have spent a little bit of time, not enough, trying to figure ATIP out. And I think if you have projects, even if they're not designed, that you can apply for the funding.
Yeah, you can do a
design.
construction grant, and it'll include all of the design work as well.
So don't let, if you don't have one ready for implementation, don't let that discourage you.
Can you elaborate on what type of projects would I say work, but would fall in that category? Besides roadway transportation projects?
Sidewalk projects. If that's what it's mostly looking for is
Signalization,
lighting,
signage.
all of that is, I think, part of it. We don't know all the specifics that we need to dig into it a little bit. It was recently announced, and I know Nora and I had looked at it, but we just haven't dug in.
It's really focused on connectivity and transportation spines.
So you can point, if there's projects in the current MPO active transportation plan that you can already point to that.
So what I'm thinking about is some of the cities may have a destination place that they would like to make sure all the traveling public knows about their park, their coliseum, their multi-functional facility, whatever. And they may want some additional wayfinding signs to help get there. To there, would that
I have to
Yeah,
check.
I'm not sure.
just thinking outside the box, we're trying to help.
I know SS4A, that's a component of that. I just don't know if it's a component of the AT. But we can look into it a little bit further. But it's active transportation connectivity, that's what that one is about.
Any other questions, discussion on that? Next on the agenda is discussion and update from the Texas Department of Transportation. Regarding significant public construction. Take it away, Lee.
Yeah, so the weather has not exactly been cooperative the last few weeks, but.
It's been good for my.
Spring Valley, primarily working on the west half of the roadway still, we recently made our traffic switch. North half of the project, we've got flex space down, started working curb and gutter over the last couple of weeks. Get that complete, hopefully start paving later in May. Southern half, Bolton will down to Hewitt Drive, we're moving pavement now, starting with some of the laterals for our storm drain, starting the permanent paving work there, still looking at that fall 2020. 434 University Parks, still working on the southern half of the roadway that's widening. Getting close to finishing the first half of the new bridge. Have traffic switch probably the next couple of weeks, start dev on one of the remaining half in May. I'm targeting for completing that project this calendar. All the mall. Bagby still working on tying up the intersection where there will be signals and islands and AV ramps. That should wrap up over the next few weeks. Moving to the west, it's primarily cleanup, sod. Just really punch list work in this area around Exchange Parkway. Both the U-turns in this photo are out in the traffic, so primarily cleanup punch list work in this area. Towards industrial and imperial, there's rip wrap and sod to be done primarily on the side, the southern side of six. Sorry, so it looks just imperial down to the railroad tracks. Awesome. Both east turns are open. We just have flat work rip wrap and sod to go in this area as well. Same thing for 84. Got the whole pavement removed. The front slopes graded in. It'll get permanent vegetation. So really over the next 4 to 5 weeks, you see most of that work wrap up. A couple of projects that actually started up this month. Say Highway 6 Mill Inlet project. That's from Riesel down to Robertson County. So a pretty long job. I'm really working in the Riesel area now. We've started building some level up work there. Finished through the calendar year. Started on Bellmead Drive, another overlay, safety upgrades, so upgrading Bellmead guard fence, adding safety improvements to some of our larger culverts, primarily working guard fence and culverts now. Whether we'll ever cooperate to start at night primarily with some left eye next repairs and there. And that's one of the wrap up as well.
Racing along through the agenda, next we have our work group updates.
We had our last meeting on April 17th, from which you received an update. The only important point, piece of information we want to share is that we have a meeting scheduled with the NEVI group at TechStart, which is actually fairly small. But it is very likely that all the indications are that before the end of the year, we should have a certain amount of NEVI funding being made available for MPO planning purposes about where the next set of Chinese infrastructure needs to be. And so we have very first preliminary meeting scheduled with TechStart staff. I don't remember this month sometime. It's this, and so as we get more information, we'll bring it to your attention. And to the CAP meeting, what we are working on right now is to develop white papers that will allow us to direct where some of the Chinese infrastructure needs to be. Our next meeting for CAP is scheduled for July 17th. May 15th is Bike and Pet Work Group meeting. We'll have that on Park. It become bottom.
Yes.
It's in Cameron Park. And so we'll organize a walk and eventually you'll see information from us. We already decided on the format. It's some time ago.
It'll be at
ride with GTG outdoor. Some of the ones we had in December. In the week of the development center over to what was the name of it? No, we rode from some of us, because we rode from the development center over to World Cup Cafe, yeah. And then some of us walked.
Probably it won't be, so on a bike, it'll be a really short trip, and so we'll probably deviate quite a bit and go around. Especially it's fun to try the new bike lanes in Washington Avenue, for instance. So we'll definitely do that. We'll give you an update on where to speak. But if you want to ride with us, please join. We actually have several of us who ride quite a bit. So you were riding last time too, and hopefully you join us again. And so he's a very serious rider, so he actually used all of the trails. Names of these single tracks. Cameron Park, yeah. So he'll also give you a little bit of information on what are some places that we may not know yet. And so please join us for that, and that is going to be the walking group, and so.
Well, I will have to get somebody else too, because remember I have an appointment that morning.
Got it, yes, and so.
I will get there as soon as possible, but I can't leave it.
Okay, yes, but we'll have a walking group as well, and so, and it has another appointment this morning, so. One of us will be there as well, and so we'll take, last time I think we had a fun walking down to the park and some grants and what. It's more like, we want to make sure that bike and ped work group meeting is not sit across the desk, stare at each other, so there is actually quite a bit of activity, and it's a lot more fun meeting. So it's actually a fantastic group of people who come there. If you can make it, please do.
And it is bike month.
Yes.
Anybody wants to work with us, bike to work.
Okay, any questions for group updates? Okay. Time for our MPO.
So yeah, the most important one is that we have our policy board generously agreed to be called for a special meeting on April 29th, and so they came and approved the design of their CSAP. So all the cities are eligible to proceed with the implementation plan proposals. We're super excited about that. And FY 2024, I was hoping to have heard back from the administration rep so far to the demonstration project, and we're working on the sign inventory proposal as we speak.
Questions? No? Announcements. Our next tech meeting is Thursday, June 6th. Same bad time, same station. Next work group meeting, I could head, we already said, May 15th, and then have July 17th. Do you have any requests for any agenda items for our future meetings? Hearing. All the meeting adjourned at 10. Yeah.
No, I got you. I'll take
I was not thinking listening.
Oh, you have to go for the. I saw it. I saw it.